In recent years, Chinese animation films and series have experienced explosive development after a long period of silence. While in many audiences' minds, the highest standard of Chinese animation and hand painting master still belongs to the Shanghai Animation Film Studio in the 20th century. Since the 2010, a large number of new Chinese animation films and series have emerged in audiences' vision. New animators and creators are experimenting with different platforms to distribute their work. For instance, animation series no longer rely on television and specific channels, but update weekly on streaming platform, which is closer to the young generation's lifestyle. Moreover, more and more animation films are being released in Chinese cinemas and even worldwide cinemas, which is a significant step in introducing Chinese aesthetic to audiences and reviving the art of animation. Therefore, this video essay aims to explain and discuss the reason why Chinese animation has become different in the last 10 years. And through this video, audiences can discover the true concepts behind the visual creation in empty shot with Chinese landscape painting, screening genre, and hand painting technique. In 2023, it has been 100 years since the birth of Chinese animation. As Sim McDonald pointed out, animation in the PRC was a technical medium with claims of fine arts technique. As the founder of Chinese animation, the Wan brothers insisted on handmade animation even during tough times like war and revolution. Sim McDonald also mentioned the cultural gaps between the PRC and the West during the revolutionary period were economic and political. However, this hardly means that culture, as a series of signs and symbols reproduced within a particular national space and linguistic system, must be isolated in a historical quarantine like a time capsule, only analyzable within a referential reading for deliberate ideological messages and dictates. Before the 2000s, the Shanghai Animation Film Studio was the center of animation film and TV series production in China. However, with the dramatic changes in China's development structure, the studio faded in 1999 due to a disastrous investment in Lotus Latin. From 2000 to 2010, under the influence of Western and the Japanese animation culture, Chinese animation underwent a process of aesthetic reinvention. Since 2010, Chinese animation studios have entered a stage of recognized aesthetic. While simultaneously, hundreds of animation studios compete for attention. 2D and 3D works run parallel, while film, TV, and streaming media coexist. Empty shot with Chinese landscape painting. In Chinese inkbrush animation production, it is common to see the use of many elements from traditional Chinese painting, which focuses on depicting landscapes and animals in nature. Chinese handmade animators have been using nature as a theme since the 1960s and have continued to do so even after the turn of the 21st century. This aesthetic of nature has become a core ideology not only for ink brush animators, but also for Chinese audiences. In Chinese animation short series and films produced after 2010, audiences can clearly see the significant changes in narrative techniques and camera settings. These changes are not limited to simple storytelling, but also include the use of more cinematographic aesthetics to enhance the beauty of the image. For instance, in the last century, empty shots were rarely used in the film produced by Shanghai Animation Film Studio, as the process of making empty shots in ink brush animation requires the same layer as characters building.
1秒钟24格，1秒钟24格呢，有的时候我们比如一个普通的动画片，有可能就要到24张。 那么水墨动画的话呢，它因为层次比较多，是普通动画片的4到5倍，那么它可能就是一部动画片完成，可能要上10万张的画，这样的一个巨大的量。
In other words, adding empty shots to the storytelling structures was unnecessary. Therefore, animation studios difficult to give the same amount of labor and financial resources. However, with the rise of hand-drawn animation film by Miyazaki and Makoto Shinkai, more hand-drawn animation film techniques were discovered, which made technical innovation and digital use inevitable. Additionally, the animation film of Hayao Miyazaki and Makoto Shinkai, which focus on picture aesthetics, have generated a phenomenal response in East Asia, indirectly inspiring local Chinese animators. For example, the animated film Return to the Great Sage and哪吒highlights the combination of traditional Chinese aesthetic and modern technology, particularly in their visual effects. Audiences can recognize that Havoc in Heaven, which was produced by Shanghai Animation Film Studio in 1961, is an animated film with religious metaphors. Chinese audiences have also adopted this handmade animation film as Monkey King, because it is a part of fictional novel Journey to the West from the Ming Dynasty, and features many characters from Taoism. Similarly, the folk hero of 5 elements uses empty landscape shots to describe the mood and the situation of the character, which is in line with Miranda Shan's theory that poetry written by 3rd and 4th century Neo-Taoist confirms that the landscape had become an important focus of religious meaning and experience. J.D. Fransham discusses this body of poetry as genesis of landscape poetry in China. Although landscape description had figured in earlier poetry, such as the Book of Odes and the Songs of the South, what distinguishes this poetry is that in its nature is laden with symbolic and metaphoric significance. In other words, the animators not only choose traditional Chinese landscape painting techniques for aesthetic purpose, but also to convey Taoist thought. Screening genre. In the production of hand painting and ink brush animation art aesthetics, besides Shanghai Animation Film Studio, there are also many individual animation studios emerged like Newborn Seedling. For example, Wolf Smoke Studio, which streams its work on many different streaming platforms, has made a name for itself in the Chinese animation industry with its exquisite traditional Chinese artwork. Compared to the high cost and complicated politics of cinema and TV screening in China, streaming distribution provides individual animators with more room for creativity. In the case of White Bird Valley and The White Moon, both released by Wolf Smoke Animation Studio, the animators pay more attention to creating art without being bound by dialectic narrative comprehension or lines. In Whitebird Valley, for instance, the animators focused on the creation of art by giving the narrative and the art of the story entirely to the picture and the camera movement, setting off a new trend of traditional Chinese aesthetics. The picture style of Whitebird Valley features richer and more vivid color than traditional ink brush animations. Take the recent phenomenon of the animation work Yao Chinese Folktales as an example. Shanghai Animation Film Studio has re-established the tradition of Chinese ink brush animation through a new distribution method. The streaming platform allows the audiences to learn more about creators' ideas and also enables the creators to share more archival images to communicate with audiences. Ink brush technique and animation technique. In the creation of modern Chinese ink brush animation production, the audiences can find that the handmade animators also often refer to traditional Chinese arts techniques, such as traditional Chinese ink brush skills, and the adoption and the learning of color selection and use. Furthermore, I found a modern Chinese digital ink brush animation studio named Niceboat Animation that produced an animated series called Fork Hill of 5 Elements in 2020. I take this handmade animation as the example because from the Fork Hill of 5 Elements production archive footage, modern Chinese handmade animators still refer and recreate many representative techniques in ancient Chinese arts. For example, in traditional Chinese ink brush painting, landscape wheels and trees usually paint black to match the white rice paper with a brush dipped in ink. The audiences can clearly realize the handmade animation production team of Fork Hill of 5 Elements uses the same printing techniques as famous traditional ink brush painting, even they create digitally, such as 1,000 Miles of River and Mountain from Wang Ximeng Song Dynasty and the Angler on a Wintry Lake from Ma Yuan Song Dynasty. Moreover, from the opening production archive footage, the animation team shows their persistence and understanding of the ethos of ink brush animations. And the audiences can also have the feelings that stays deep with the animation team to focus on the production processing. For example, ink brush animators use a combination of colors and water. In traditional Chinese ink brush painting techniques, water and ink are the most important components, and water is a unique role. The first reason is rice paper's water permeability, which brings water's unique visualization. Another reason is that in the creative concept of traditional Chinese painting, water is an important element to regulate the shade of the color. In other words, the amount of water added to the same color can determine the distance between the scene in the painting and the shade or sunshine side of the painted object. Finally, is the thesis statement. The creation and recreation of Chinese animation aesthetics are the important analysis concept of this video essay. In other words, the audience's approval is crucial. Because after more and more Chinese audiences and animators have enough understanding and learning of Japanese anime and Western animation, they began to reflect on what is Chinese culture and folklore in Chinese animation, as well as animation techniques and aesthetics that are unique to China. The new generation Chinese animators found the way that the themes of animation stories should be more rooted in ancient Chinese stories and religion symbols, which can make audiences understand easily and resonate with the story concepts. Moreover, the new generation animators also add more adult-oriented concepts, inner thought, and characters model creation, which also make it easier for people in more age groups to accept and appreciate the form of animation production in China.